to this evening's candidate forum for the select board election that will be held November 2nd. I'm really glad that our candidates agreed to this forum. We appreciate them taking the time. This is a great opportunity for us to get to know them and for them to get out their message about why they're running. And we have Jay Bradshaw, who will be hosting and moderating the forum. And Anthony Wilson, our town manager, will be controlling the Facebook live feed. So I'm going to turn it over to Jay to begin.
Great. Thanks, Gina, and thanks everybody. We really appreciate your joining us this evening, whether you're joining us via Zoom or on Facebook. We think this is a great opportunity to get to meet these two candidates. I just want to sort of go through kind of what this is and what this isn't. What this is an opportunity to meet the candidates. What it is not is a debate. I think one of the really nice things about town government is, for the most part, it's apolitical. We have issues that bring us together as a town. We have ideas that will help make our town better. And so this is an opportunity to chat with Nicholas and with Carol about their vision. Just a couple of other housekeeping things. We ask that if you have the ability to turn your video off, that you do so, and it looks like that's been done with our guests. We're trying to keep the video feed limited to the candidates, Gina and myself. In terms of submitting your questions, please do that. You're more than welcome to do so. Those of you who are on Zoom can use the chat feature. The chat feature will come to Gina, Anthony, and myself as hosts, and we will present the questions to the candidates. If you're on Facebook, you're welcome to type a question into the comment box there, and we will monitor that as well. So just to get things started, I'm going to start in no particular order other than the way they appear from left to right on my screen. So I'm going to start with Nicholas, since he's the first one up on my screen. And Nicholas, just tell us a bit about yourself and why you decided to run for selectman.
Okay, so my name is Nicholas Alexander. I graduated Methodology High School in 2020, and I'm a college student at KVCC, currently studying liberal arts. And the reason why I decided to run for select board is to get young people involved, because I think that's the biggest thing we need to do is get the next generation involved, because we are the ones that are going to make the decisions going forward. So I just wanted to get that jump started.
And tell us about your involvement in town and other activities that have sort of helped prepare you for this next step.
Yes. Okay, so I was most recently appointed to the appeals board. That was like a month ago, and then I've been part of multiple political committees outside of government, and I'm also the chair of a young Republicans group in the state.
Thank you. And Carol.
I'd like to say thank you for this opportunity, for Gina putting it together and Jay for moderating. It's after a lot of thoughtful consideration that I decided to do this. I'm a strong believer in civic involvement, and I think I have the skills to help the town in the select board. I've had my own business for 30 years of my own business, 40 years with the same corporation. I have a lot of collaborative work that you've had to do in that. In my business, which was an all-state agency for the last 30 years, I deal with the public a lot, and it's a lot of working with folks to help them get from one place to the other, to make sure that we can work around their needs. And I think the skills that I have developed from that will certainly help in working with moving Belgrade forward and helping it continue to be the wonderful place that it is.
And tell us about your involvement with town activities as well that helped I
Well,
think,
with
prepare you for this.
yeah, I'm a member of the budget committee. And I have worked I'm very active in my church, and Union Church in Belgrade Lakes, which does a lot of work within the community. I've been on the board for the Friends of Belgrade Lakes Village. So when the road was being reconstructed here through town, there was an extensive amount of work that we did in private partnership with raising money separately to put in upgrading the sidewalks and put in the lighting and the amenities in town. And then I'm also the president of the Belgrade Lakes Association. Our association works strictly with Great Pond and Long Pond, which are the two ponds, the two largest ones that we have in Belgrade. So I've worked with that, and then collaboratively with Seven Lakes and the other 4 or 5 lake associations in the area.
Wonderful, thank you. So this time I'm going to start with Carol, and I would just start off by, as a select board member, are there changes or improvements that you would like to see made in the town of Belgrade? And really specifically, what role do you think the select board could have in making those changes?
Well, I think in any organization, there's always room for improvement. Recently, there was a presentation by the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Review Committee, if I have that right, that George Seal made at the select board meeting. And there are a number of recommendations on that. And I think it was agreed there that those we need to work on. But on a larger scale, I think we really need to focus on maintaining the water quality of our lakes. There's no doubt, I think, in anyone's mind that we sit in the middle of 5 lakes, and we have 2 more upstream of us. And water quality is so important that we make sure that we take care of that, because that really is our economy. Great Pond and Long Pond are on the impaired list. Salmon, McGrath, and Messalonsky are on the threatened list. And we all know North Pond and East Pond have had serious algal blooms over the years. And water quality, it's not going away. There are all of these lakes have had recent watershed development plans. There are pollution sites, and with us, that basically means dirt's getting into the lake. And we've identified a number of those. The town has about 20 sites roughly that need to have work done on them. And it's not in our budget to do it. So I am proposing that we seriously look at the ARPA monies, American Rescue Protection Act monies, as a way to not impact our budget, but to do whatever we can to take care, but keep our lakes clean, and that be a big focus of the select board.
And to that point, what role or roles do you think the select board could have with regard to the lake quality and the issues that you mentioned about the different sites?
The lake quality issues are not just issues that affect those people who live on the lake. It affects our entire economy. So educating folks in the town about what can be done. Not all of it is water that's running right off properties adjacent. There are roads that need to be done. There are road associations work. I think there are a couple of gravel pits where we always look to make sure that there's not pollution. So it's really a town project of looking, and it's making sure that that's a focus. I think we utilize our Lakes Committee a great deal in this, working collaboratively also with Seven Lakes and individual associations.
Great, thank you. Nicholas, same question. Are there any changes or improvements that you'd like to see in the town of Belgrade, and what role do you think the select board could have in making those changes?
Yes. As of now, I don't have a recommendation because I'm relatively new to town politics, but I'm excited to have the opportunity to learn and grow with the select board. I'm sure that I'll have plenty to say. I'm sure I will have plenty to say in the future.
Well, then let me go on. What, based upon your understanding as a resident in Belgrade and on the appeals board and other activities, what do you think are the most pressing issues that the town faces, short term and then long term?
Yes, one of the most pressing issues that I feel the town is facing right now is recovery from the pandemic, because the lasting effects from that will greatly impact our elderly. So I think it's time for us to have listening sessions in conjunction with Belgrade Regional Health, and I'm working with it. I am talking to them about that right now.
Do you have some early ideas as to things that the select board might be able to do in response to guidance about the pandemic, or do you see this really as a need to listen first?
I see this as a need to listen first, and then we go from there.
Okay. Carol, what are your thoughts about the short and longer term pressing issues?
Short term, the most pressing issue that I see before the board and the town right now is this salt contamination problem. And there's been extensive studies done on it, research on identifying the problem, evaluating the solutions. And it appears now is that the way to do it is to work with the state to develop and implement a water distribution system. But it's very difficult to figure out, to do a budget, to reserve funds, to know what our costs are going forward. And I think we may be a little bit in the chicken and the egg is how do we move that forward until we know what the costs are, but how do we know what the costs are till we move it forward? And I think, especially from the budget planning, is we just don't know, what to do with those. And I think we need to formulate that plan sooner rather than later so that we can put all that together.
That's a great, I'm glad you mentioned the budget process because it's a nice segue into one of the big challenges that we face as a town is that we really control relatively little of the total tax dollars. We raise a lot of money in taxes. The overwhelming majority of it goes to the school district. And we're fortunate that we have a great school district. There's another large chunk that goes to county government. And then a relatively small part comes to Belgrade. So how do, as a budget committee member and just a thinking person, how do you sort of balance that? What can we do in Belgrade that's really going to have a meaningful impact on the budget and our tax dollars?
It's about 16.5% is what we're left to run the town on. So it is a very small amount. And I think we need to work as closely as we can with each of those departments as we go through the budget. And you look at, it doesn't take a lot to impact that. That is one of the reasons why I would like us to get working on qualifying for the ARPA funds for the lake remediation, because that would not, it would solve a problem and not take it out of our budget. The rest of it is being as careful as we can in planning to take advantage of new technologies as they come along. I know the roads committee had a presentation to the board about possibly a new paving solution, and to possibly try that on East-West Road, because it might be a way to cut some of our costs. And I know it's been done in the past or a similar situation, but new technologies can bring us new ways. The other piece to that is I think we really should look at moving our fiscal year to a July to June fiscal year, because that's when we get budgets from the school board and from the county, so that we have a much better way of planning and trying to plan appropriately.
Thank you. Nicholas, same question back to you with regard to the budget. In the article that was in the town newsletter, you mentioned that one of the things that you would like to do is to work to help lower taxes. What are the types of things that come to mind when you think about the taxes, and how do the Belgrade select people make meaningful changes and when it's only 16% of the budget?
That's a tough question to answer, but one thing I one thing I want to focus on if I'm elected is unconventional ways to lower taxes, because that 16%, like you said, isn't much wiggle room. So I would like to try to figure out tax offsets, but I haven't had a chance to look at the budget, so I really can't give you any meaningful ideas as of now, but those are just a few things I have in mind.
Well, then in general, say a little bit more about tax offsets. What types of things do you think, regardless of the numbers and things, what types of things might we be able to consider for tax offsets?
Well, one thing we could consider is, I'm not sure.
It's a tough question. So, well, then let me transition just a little bit along that line. We often hear folks talk about the difference between needs and wants, and how we really need to focus on the things that we need, even if it means that some of the things that we want have to be delayed a little bit. So what do you think, Nicholas, is the balance that Belgrade should strive for between essential services like fire and rescue, road maintenance, solid waste, versus services that enhance the quality of life in Belgrade, like recreational programs and the library? How do you see Belgrade, and as a member of the select board, how would you guide the board along that path?
Yes. So my answer to this question is that it's a tough question, because it's a tough question to answer, because essential services will always be part of our commitment to the town. While prices may change from year to year, the need will always exist for social services. So I don't think we can really say what's more important. I don't think we can really answer that question, because we really can't say what is more important than the other.
I think it's tough, but I think at some point that's exactly what we have to do. Whether we like it or not, we don't have all the money in the world, and we don't have a magic wand to just do what we want. And there are times where tough decisions have to be made. And I know that this isn't just on the select board, because the select board plays a key role, but we as voters in the town do as well when we're at the town meetings. Carol, same question to you about striking the balance between essential services and programs and services that enhance our community. What are your thoughts?
I think a town is a lot more than just where you live. So I think roads are important. Transfer station is another example. We've done a lot of work on upgrading roads and upgrading the transfer station. And just as an aside, I'm really pleased that we have a town that focuses on recycling as much as we do. But all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. And we have to have some of those other pieces to have a well-rounded life, other than just a place where we exist. And I think the library is important, the Center for All Seasons, the programs they provide for the kids, some of their adult programs, as well as the concerts in the park, utilizing the green. And the concerts in the park were a huge success this summer. I know at a couple of them, there were well over a couple of hundred people, doing my unofficial quick, adding up folks. And those were at a relatively low cost. They're pretty self-sustaining. So I think we need to find ways that we can use the resources we have and do them in without a great cost to the town, because it is important that we be well-rounded. And I'm really excited that the Senior Resource Committee is reinvigorated here and doing some new things, because I think that's another way we're more of an aging community, And looking at senior resources is an important part of that.
It does seem that the Village Green is a beautiful spot, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to make it to the concerts this year. It does seem that Thursday night proved to be a challenging weather night. It's
It
like
was rainy days and Thursday. For sure.
rainy, cold wind. I mean, we ran the whole thing in the course of about 2 months
Yeah.
worth of time. Well, Carol, how would you describe your communication style? I mean, what works for you in terms of getting feedback from townspeople? And how do you like people to connect with you?
You know, the best communication style for me is one-on-one. If you can have the opportunity to talk one-on-one, because if you have a question for me and I have an answer to, so that appropriately or to clearly enough for you, you can say, well, what did you really mean by that? So I think one-on-one is the best. Phone conversations, I would say, were the next best, because again, you can have that interchange back and forth with folks. Email, I do a lot of email. Challenge with email is you can't always, words without intonation, you're not sure whether exactly how those words are meant. So you need to be, I'm very careful in writing emails that I'm hoping that trying to figure out if that word is going to be understood by the person on the other end the way that I mean it. So I'm open to all means of it, but I really like the one-on-one. The other part to the question too, the select board, I'm really happy they've added the public comment section in the beginning of the select board meetings, so that if someone has something they want to talk about, it's not on the agenda. They have an opportunity to raise the question, and usually it'll find its way either to an appropriate committee or to the select board on an agenda item in the near future.
Thank you. Nicholas, same question. Tell us about your communication style and what works well for you.
So I'm a tech guy, so I like all forms of communication. And if people have questions for the select board, I suggest that people attend select board meetings, and if attendance is down by residents, the select board needs to come up with creative ways for residents to attend.
It's been interesting. I think one of the I don't know if I'd call it a benefit of the pandemic, because I'm not sure if that's the right word to use, but it has been interesting that since we've been using the technology for the select board meetings, attendance is significantly higher, because we're able to join from our homes as opposed to the town office. That said, I miss the ability to have meetings, including our town meeting in person, and look forward to that time when we can do that. But so I guess the part of the reason why I asked about the communications styles, sometimes there are issues that arise with little notice. The board meets a couple times a month, and stuff happens all the time. We have a great staff, we've got a great town manager, but things do come up where it needs a timely guidance from the board. How would you describe, starting with Nick here, so how would you describe your process in triaging the issues that might come at the last minute to the board?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Yeah, I did sort of do a long-winded lead in for that. I apologize. It really is that recognizing that sometimes issues come before the select board with very little notice. And they're issues that require a rapid discussion, input, and perhaps guidance to the town office. How would you describe your style in triaging those issues and providing that level of guidance?
I think I would be able to do that because I don't go to school or anything right now. So if I'm elected, I'm planning on putting 110% into the select board. So if any major issue came up, I would be able to get myself acquainted with the issue and then make an informed decision from there.
Carol.
I think probably the quickest way to do it is with texting. As much as I like one-on-one communication, to try to call the five select board members with, as well as Anthony, and work it through, is that probably texting is the quickest way to say, we're going to send you an email of what's happening, or we're going to send you a basis for review. Please look at it. I always have my phone on me, or my iWatch, because I've decided that I need to, living alone, if I decide to fall down and crack my head, it would be nice if somebody could come get me and not wait 2 days to find me. So I do have the ability of, knowing or getting pretty instant notification. And as long as I know who's texting me or who's calling me, I answer it right away. So I think that probably on those short-term things, that would be a more efficient way to do it.
Yes.
It's interesting you mentioned the iWatch. I also have an iWatch, and I've noticed that when I'm splitting wood, it often thinks that I've fallen and asks if I want help to come. Now, I'm tempted to say, yes, I'd love to have help come to split the wood, but I don't think that's exactly the type of help that Apple had in mind with that.
But make sure you answer it, or you'll have the EMT visiting you
I-
and helping you.
I did, and that's tough, because if I don't always pay attention, I've actually gone to take it off now, so I'm probably not a good example of what Apple had in mind. Carol, staying with you for just a second, what do you see as the biggest improvements that the town has done in the last 3 to 4 years?
Well, I think there are 2 or 3 major ones. One of the biggest ones I see is the collaborative effort between the town of Rome and the town of Belgrade to staff up our EMT situation. So we have a full-time paramedic, as well as a full-time advanced EMT who's working on full paramedic certification. So that with our volunteer EMTs, it does 2 things. It gives tremendous support to the people who live here in Belgrade and in Rome. And it's the beginning of what I think will be an important part of collaboration between the 2 towns as we move forward, especially in the fire area. We have a new tanker with the fire department, and I think fortunately we have the fire chief who's just re-upped, if that's the proper word, for another 5 years. So we'll have Dan's leadership moving forward. We had road reconstruction all around the village and all around the town, whether it was 225, whether it was 8 and 11, whether it was through 27. 2 or 3 years ago, you couldn't go anywhere because you were sitting waiting for the crews to let you through. But it's made the ease of getting around town and being here much easier. And with that came the improvements, in particular here with the acceptance of the town of the village green and the gazebo, and as well as the improved sidewalks and village green and the, and lighting system here in the village.
I'm going to ask Nicholas the same question, but before I do, I just want to remind folks that if you have a question that you would like to put to the candidates, if you're joining us on Zoom, please use the chat feature and send your question there. If you're using Facebook, please put your question into the comment section, and we'll turn to those in just a second. But I want Nicholas to have the opportunity to tell us, what do you think are the biggest improvements that the town has seen in the last 3 to 4 years?
For me specifically, I think it's in the town in general. I think it's the hybrid, the transition to the hybrid meeting, because if there wasn't hybrid meetings, I wouldn't be able to join the appeals board or have my voice be heard, because sometimes it's hard for people in wheelchairs and homebound people to get out. So I think the Zoom meetings and all that stuff is the biggest improvement for the town in the past 2 to 3 years.
Thank you. Let me turn to Anthony to see. I don't see any questions in the chat feature. Do we have any questions or that have been presented on Facebook?
Not as of yet.
Not yet. Okay. Well, I think it was Carol that mentioned the senior, what's the name of the committee? The
Resource committee.
Senior resource.
senior research. Yes, as a senior, I should probably know those things, but can you say a little bit more about that and your understanding of that will work its way through the select board?
My understanding is that that committee is just getting itself back together and moving forward. I know they have picked up the file of life that they're looking to have available for anyone, but in particularly for senior folks, of medications and contact information and those types of things. So I think that those types of things work. I expect they're going to come up with some ideas of some extra services or availability for services that will need select board approval or approval from the town. I don't know what those are. I'm not on that committee, but I would be very surprised. I know they're very creative people on there, that there's going to need to be support from the select board as they move forward in suggestions.
Perhaps I should have frame my question a little bit more articulately. And I'm trying to recognize that a lot of our citizens, as this is true with the state of Maine, are older. I happen to be among them. That older retired folks that are here that love Belgrade and really interested in the types of things that you think the town could do that would help make this the community in which senior residents could stay and enjoy life longer. Is that any better?
Well, I think, I guess on two levels, there are some things that would be, I would say, relatively easy, sort of micro, computer classes, or how to use Facebook, or how to do some of those computer things that might be run through either the Center for All Seasons or the North Belgrade Center. Some outreach, whether it's game night or playing bridge in the afternoon. I mean, there's some easy things that they could do as far as building community. And then there are larger issues. I think there are a number of people who would like to remain in Belgrade. Transportation is an issue. We have neighbors driving neighbors that help transport people, but if they need doctor's appointments, those types of things, but transportation within the town, maybe you want to go to a game day, but you don't have a way to get there. And do we need as a town to look at some senior housing? What do we need to do for senior housing and senior development? Those are sort of the macro pieces that I think we need to look at and would definitely need support from the select board in moving them forward, supporting them, and helping implement when and if it's able to do so.
Thank you. Nicholas, same question for you. You mentioned again in the newsletter to encourage senior and youth involvement. What are the things that you think of when you think along the lines of what we can do to help support seniors in Belgrade to be connected and involved in those type of things?
I agree with Carol. What we need to focus on is maybe, I know the Senior Resources Committee is doing this, but they're trying to figure out if we can make the North Belgrade Community Center a senior center, which I think would be good, because right now we only have a senior morning at the Center for All Seasons on Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m. So I think it would be good to have a place for seniors to play games and to have a neighbor to neighbor interaction. So yeah.
Thank you. One of the questions that I don't see anything in the chat, and I'll.
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
there is a question in the chat. Would you like me to read it, or?
Please, I don't see it.
So it says, would you like, and of course, this is for the candidates, would you like to see a return to the traditional in-person town meeting or entirely written ballot? What do you see as the pros and cons to each approach?
Thank you, Nicholas. I'll start with you.
Yes. So I think the written ballot is good, but the secret ballot is better in my opinion, because we get more people to vote. If it's an in-person town meeting, there's only a few hundred people show up. But if it's a secret ballot, I assume that more people would request ballots and decide to vote.
Carol, your thoughts on town meetings?
I do agree with Nick. If I have the numbers close to being right, I think the last in-person town meeting, there were less than 200 people at it. Wasn't, hugely attended, but traditionally they're not huge amounts of folks there. And yet at the last election, there were, 700 to 800 people that voted on the written ballot. And I think the written ballot, we have more people involved. The more people involved, the better represented town government is. However, I do understand the value of that town meeting, and I've been thinking that maybe the week before the written ballot, we do a town forum, for lack of a better word. So if folks have questions about particular issues, they could be raised in a format not unlike a town meeting, just more questioning to inform folks that aren't aware. And maybe afterwards we have some music, Christine Polson plays, or we see if we can convince the Gollers to play, or we have pizza, or we have some kind of a community get together, so that it's more than just a meeting. And maybe we'll have more people turn out for that informative part, and then go to a written ballot, which would be the following Friday, I think, is traditionally when we vote the ballot.
Yeah, I think part of the challenge is, we have to have public hearings on the articles that are discussed on. Yeah, well, we have to do the public hearings, and getting people to attend is a huge challenge. The opportunity is there, but getting them to actually attend is a challenge. And your idea of some other activity is an interesting one. I'll tell you, I think that one of the other things that this isn't my meeting. It's easy for me to inject my own bias, because I think one of the things that we lose with the secret ballot is the ability to amend articles. It's either all up or all down. So I think that's an added challenge that the select people take into consideration when they're developing the warrant, is that when it's on the floor, things can be changed. When it's on a ballot, things can't be changed. So it puts an added level of burden on the select board as they're crafting the articles. Anything else, Anthony, coming your way?
No, Sir Ralph. I'll chime in if another question is raised.
Okay, thank you. So I guess I would be interested in, we have sort of like a three-legged stool that we have in Belgrade, in the government structure. We have the townspeople, who are the legislative body. We have the board of select persons, and then we have the town manager and town office staff. Where was I think this one goes to Nicholas first. How do you see the relationship between those three, with the legislative body that meets once a year, the select board that meets every couple of weeks, and then the town manager and office staff who are there every day? How do you see that relationship working?
I see that relationship working as, I'm not sure actually.
Okay, Carol?
I see I think we have a very cohesive town staff. I know we've had some changes recently, but I think, it's sort of a smooth working staff. And we have a town manager with, I think we're just very lucky with his education and credentials and his time working in public service. So I think, the day-to-day operation and the direction, we certainly keep tabs on that part of it. I think the select board has, they meet twice a month, and they have authority to make a lot of decisions. That's why they're elected by the townspeople. And I think they should utilize that authority as it's given to them. And then there are larger issues that need to go to the town. And but I think if we work well together, there shouldn't be any big surprises. There shouldn't be a situation where, the town is in an uproar because some decision was made. There's usually not a lot of controversy when we actually go to town meeting over issues. Periodically, there'll be one that comes along, but in general, it's pretty much going as the select board has directed or made their tentative recommendations. So I see it working well together with the authority that the town gives to the select board.
Thank you. Well, I see that we're coming up on our 45 minutes, and I don't see any. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, and since Anthony didn't jump in, I'm assuming the Facebook is clear.
Facebook is clear.
Wonderful. Well then, let me just toss it back to. I'll start with Carol and then to Nicholas. Just to any final comments that you would like to make before we wrap it up this evening.
Final comments. I took a very long time deliberating to see if I felt that I had the time to dedicate to becoming a select person, because it's a huge commitment, a huge time commitment as I look at it. And, I do have time now that I'm retired, and a couple of other projects are sort of completed, or, I'm no longer in charge of or working on them. So I feel I do have skills, and I have skills that right now I'm not utilizing and I could utilize in this position. I'm passionate about this town. Belgrade's been in my heart my whole life, and there's not another place in the world I want to be. And if I'm elected, I'd have the privilege of taking that commitment and that passion to Belgrade, to moving it forward, so that it's not only here for the past that we've been in, the present we're in, but that we keep Belgrade this little jewel in the middle where people want to come and live and raise their families and retire and enjoy the lakes and all the resources that we have here. So I would ask for your vote, and I thank you folks for listening in this evening.
Thanks, Carol. Nicholas?
I just want to thank you, Jay, Gina, and Anthony for putting this on. And I just want to ask people for their vote, and thank you for listening to what the candidates have to say.
Thanks, Nicholas. Before I turn it over to Gina, I just want to add my thanks. That I think that having people interested in town government is part of what makes this community a very special one. And as a longtime resident here, I very much appreciate that you both have stepped forward and expressed your willingness to play that role and to be with us this evening. And so with that, Gina, I'll turn it back to you for your wrap up.
Okay, thank you, Jay, and thanks, Carol and Nick. Really informative forum. Really appreciate you two agreeing to this. It's a great service that you've given the town so that we can get to know you better and hear what you have to say. I know it's not easy, doing this. It makes people nervous, but you two were really smooth. So good job. And Jay, thank you so much for your moderating, another good conversation with the candidates. And thanks, Anthony, for helping us put this on, and other members of the communications committee. Hope that all of you get out to the polls or get your absentee ballots, which are available now in the town office, and let's have a good voter turnout on November 2nd. So
Sounds good.
I hope everyone has a good evening.
Okay.